What a marvelous day. Today is another weekend, but this is the Holy Weekend. And it is Saturday. Yesterday was Good Friday, which of course we consider as the Holy Friday. Now, we all know as Liberians, we have our tradition of observing, including the world, this particular weekend. And this weekend is special and significant in the lives of every Christian, those who are or call themselves disciples of Jesus Christ. It is the holiest of the holiest of Christendom. And so we'd like to welcome you here this Saturday on our podcast, Gracious Hope Live podcast. And our platform is intended to promote and preserve the Liberian Christian heritage. Hello, once again, and my name is Alexander Red, and I'm your host here. And I'm here along with Reverend Suarez Dede, the co host. Reverend Dede, it's another day, and we are so delighted to be with the audience here to present Liberia Holy Weekend, the present of Liberia and the future of Liberia. What a marvelous day!
Indeed, a marvelous day. This is the day that the Lord has made. We're going to rejoice and be glad in it because it is a marvelous day. Why? God has been good to all of us. God has been gracious, and He continues to be a compassionate God. In our unfaithfulness, God continues to be faithful. He keeps His promises that He's going to be with us all to the end, and we can see the love of God resonating amongst ourselves. So we are blessed to come back today, Alex. This Holy Week, it's a
Yes,
somber time, a time of reflection where we look at how far God has brought us from, and where we believe by faith He's going to take us in years ahead. We don't know what lies ahead, but we know who hosts what lies ahead, and the one who hosts what lies ahead is God. And I'm glad. And I want to welcome you too. And our guest, you're going to call the guest name. I'm not going to jump ahead of you. I'll give you time to do that. Yeah, but welcome to brother. How are you today?
well, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And I love this weekend. And, some of our brothers and sisters will feel sad because this is the day when our Lord is in the tomb. He was buried. As you know, he was beating and scourging every way on his body, wasted his blood. And he took a cross and to that hill, Calvary, and
Yeah.
he was crucified with two other men who were thieves, and on the cross we know that he promised one of the thieves who was very humble to say, Lord, I recognize you. And he said, today you'll be in paradise. What a
Yeah.
marvelous time. And we celebrate this day in commemoration of what happened centuries ago. And so being in your midst here, it is a privilege for us. And we are so glad also to bring on our special guest, Mr. John F. Lord. He lives in the Washington, D.C., Maryland area, the metro area. And Mr. Lord is a former president of the Liberian community in the metro area of Washington, D.C. He also was the chairman of the National Leadership Council of ULA, that is the umbrella group of all Liberians in the United States. And he served the city of DC as the commissioner to the mayor's office on African affairs in Washington, D.C. So he has a very polished credentials, and we respect him a whole lot. And today we'll be getting his perspective on Liberia's present and future. We all know a lot of things been happening in our country, the good, the bad, and ugly. But we are here with a positive attitude to bring awareness as we celebrate this holy day in recognition of our tradition as a Christian nation, in a sense that our country is predominantly Christian based. We have people who work in the government and other government, and even the church plays a very significant organic role in the establishment of our country. And so Liberia is our country, and we love our country, and we show our patriotism by discussing issues that are so contemporary and affect the lives of each and every Liberian. So, without much ado, let us now bring on our special guest here, Mr. John F. Lord. Lord, Mr. Lord, welcome on this holy Saturday. And we appreciate your time to be here with us as our special guest. And this is the way who say welcome to Gracious Hope Live Podcast.
Thank you very much, Dr. Red and Reverend Dede, for allowing me another invitation to share with you, two intellectuals, on this Holy Week of Easter. We stand
Yes,
between Good Friday and Easter, between the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So uh, it's a special moment as we remember the um, the crucifixion of our Lord and Savior. We also take time to remember the past and future of our country, Liberia.
yes, the
Exactly,
past and the
exactly,
future. That's true.
exactly.
Reverend
Yeah.
Dede?
Yeah, yeah. Before even move, I always like to say this because it's good to be humble and recognize people who played a pivotal part in your own professional operation. I remember when I was serving the president of Liberia, I visited DC, and I had the pleasure of John visiting with me and taking me around to a large extent. He was president when I met with the National Endowment for Democracy, NED. And John is a humble man, but he's a fighter. I can say that for sure because I know him for years now, for working with Data Observer in Liberia, coming to America, and he keeps his mind on the target, not having any personal issue with people, but the target will be the issues that will be relevant to be discussed. He does not discuss personalities, and we'll see it through this discussion today. He is focused on the main issues because he wants issues resolved. So John, I'm always happy when we can come in the same room. Literally we're not in the same room right now. With social media, we discuss our dear country Liberia. We put in sweat and blood. I don't have to go into the long story for our country, and things are where they are. So, what can we do, and how do we do what we can do? Uh, how long can we do what we think we can do? So these are the issues we'll be discussing today. And of course, Alex has come a long way too. He's had his own run with the powers that be. So we all have had our own time with the powers that be. And now we have to discuss. So welcome, John. It's a pleasure to have you here today. And thank you for accepting our invitation for the second time. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you also.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Holy Week, Saturday. Yesterday, we reflected on Good Friday when our Lord was crucified and taken from the cross to be buried. And so today, we are still observing this Holy Week. Now, from your own perspective and your own understanding, as a Liberian, we celebrate this day as Christians. And so, what can you reflect on looking at from Good Friday yesterday, today, and the Resurrection Day tomorrow? Um, what are your thoughts when it comes to how you can link that with the pain and suffering our people go through, just how Christ suffered? So, in that light, what is your perspective so far?
Alex, I will first reminisce on the days growing up in Liberia where on Good Friday, you remember we used to beat Judas.
Yeah,
I remember that. I
yeah,
remember that.
So it's been a long time we haven't been able to beat old Judas for betraying Jesus Christ. But on that backdrop of our Liberian tradition and culture, I mean, those things, those moments that we reminisce allow us to laugh and feel good about where we came from, a happy place. Um, like any other place, situation, or environment, things are never permanent. There's always the uphills and the downs. And Liberia has faced these circumstances, and we are still going through that. But I don't see any reason why we should be discouraged. Um, I think the challenges that we face is a test to our ability to overcome. And I think, in as much as we get discouraged sometimes, and while others remain fighting, and while we fight, while others, falter by the wayside, we should still, fall down. But like Mandela said, it's not, we cannot be measured by, how many times we fall, but our ability to fall and get up. Liberia will get up again because our heart, our minds, and our souls remain persistent and determined to make sure that happens.
yeah, that is very encouraging, Reverend Dede, for
Yeah.
him to say
That,
so.
I'm telling you that is a good segue to begin
Yeah.
this live podcast, because some of us have given up completely about Liberia, where we are and where they think we are going. The statement that Liberia will rise again, Liberia will live on. There will be taking things, there will be issues that will plague us along the way. But our country, I would say, it's not dying. Yeah, our country is being challenged right now with different issues, political, economic, social, you can spiritual as well. You can name the whole plethora of issues that we are faced with. But we are not dying. We are not a dying nation. A nation that loves God, a nation that looks to God in troubling times, does not die. There will be struggling, there will be struggles along the way, but with the faith we have in God, the trust we have in God, the dependence on God, God will not allow His children to just perish and disappear and vanquish along the way. So, John, I totally agree with you, like Brother Rouse again. But how does that happen? What do we do? And that's what we're discussing today, Alex.
Yes. So then it begs a question: what can we do as a people, looking at all of the challenges that we face, and we face those challenges in the midst of ritualistic killings, mysterious deaths, misappropriation of funds, that's the public funds, the lack of integrity in some sector of our country, leadership is under the microscope as we all look forward to the 2023 presidential election. Now, what is your take on that, Mr. Lord?
Well, Dr. Red, that's a very good question. Uh, our country is at a crossroads where we are about to face the choice of democratic elections to choose our leaders, senators, and representatives. Again, we've gone through this path since post-war Liberia. This will be the fourth time, and we still appear not to have it right. These social conditions and other horrific situations still occur on the ground. You're talking about ritualistic killings. You're talking about corruption, the lack of self-determination of our people uh, because of the lack of incentives, the lack of protection, law and order, national security, personal security. All these basic tenets that allow people to live freely and to thrive and to survive and to make progress are lacking. How can we approach elections when in the face, of the practice of democracy, we have this hovering phenomena of things like ritualistic killing and the disappearance of people unresolved? Now, we cannot point fingers at this particular government and say they invented ritualistic killing. Uh, we cannot point fingers at them and say they invented corruption.
Mhm.
But one thing we can say is that they ran on the platform that they will change and make progress in when it comes to these particular vices of our country. When others were in power, we heard people from the Congress of Democratic Change, CDC, condemn the past leadership, for corruption. They condemn the past leadership for not giving protection to ordinary citizens. But now they assume power. And it seems not only not to improve, but it seems to be worse. What was the purpose of, elevating them to public office when they are not going to bring improvement? Are there excuses as to why they didn't perform it? Or would the common saying be, oh, well, they did it in the past? If it happened in the past and you came there as an agent of change, then you should bring change. A government that does not protect its people has no purpose leading. The purpose of any leader, whether in a household or in any setting, church or organization, is to provide protection and direction for their people. The people seem not to have direction in terms of governance. They have no protection in terms of civil liberties and simple human protection. Armed robberies, killings have occurred. But it's not the fault of government, as I say, but at least the attempt on the part of government to correct these wrongs.
Mhm.
How many people have been prosecuted for the disappearance of people? How many people who have been accused have been actually prosecuted for the killings that have been going on? Has there even been an attempt to go through an in-depth investigation into the disappearance of people, some even high profile? These murders have gone unresolved for years. So how can the ordinary man feel safe when people who are even more empowered than they are can go disappearing and nothing comes out of that? What is the purpose of a government? What is the purpose of this structure that we call an institution of an executive government or legislature when these things go and they are swept under the carpet? I think it is a tremendous failure on the part of government and leadership to take the full responsibility given to people at the ballot box where they stand in line for, and then just throw it by the wayside by doing nothing and seeing their position as an opportunity not to serve, but to have fantastic good time and merrymaking. I think it's a waste of our people's time. And I think it's about time that Liberians sit back, step back, and realize there is a critical moment when you walk to the polls. And what you complain about cannot be corrected until you make it happen. And I think the ballot box is the answer to all these problems.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, you just lay it down as well. One thing I want to go back on, just give a little backdrop of these elections. I'm not sure every Liberian or each Liberian is following this whole process and where we are. John, you are right. Liberia will hold its fourth post-war elections on October 10th. And the Elections Commission is empowered by the Constitution to provide credible, transparent elections for president, vice president, and members of the legislature. Where we are right now, the current president is running for a second 6-year term. But one thing I would want to bring to our attention, these elections would be the first general and presidential elections organized since the departure in 2018 of the United Nations Commission in Liberia, UMIL. The issue of security, like you mentioned, will suffice. Our security forces are able to deal with these elections. I will not doubt them, but with the killings and the issue of law and order going on, someone may scratch his or her head. And when it comes to whether or not our security forces are ready and prepared to deal with the elections coming up. You will also notice that we have 21 registered political parties, 21, vying for legislative and the presidency. But I'm not sure whether all of these 21 political parties will have standard bearers to put forward. Because the president right now, apparently he will still go with the current vice president, Joel Harbert Taylor. But my question is, are our security forces prepared to deal with the elections that are coming up anytime soon? Alice, you want to comment on that?
Well, I know the armed forces of Liberia chip in with that answer, where they'll be providing security all throughout all of the polling stations, not just in Montserrat County, but all the other counties. I did listen to the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, Prince Johnson, not the other Prince Johnson in the Senate, but Prince Johnson of the Armed Forces. Prince C. Johnson. He said that the government will be able to provide security, the security through the armed forces. Now, why will armed men be standing at the poll? It presents another or portrays another whole picture of intimidation, maybe by the voters. However, it could be necessary if they carry that through and if they receive the right funding and if the strategize in the right way where people or voters would not feel intimidated, then that'll be fine. That's what I learned about providing security for the entire electoral process. Wonderful. But my concern here is that security is still a problem because there is the mistrust between the public and the security apparatus. Mr. Lord, in that kind of an environment or atmosphere, what can be said to the voters to keep that focus?
Well, you cannot carry out the practice of democracy in the absence of security. And if the electoral process is not handled in a responsible manner, where there's proper organization of a process, then we stand at a risk of defeating the purpose of democracy, because um, not only will there be a lack of turnout, participation, the participation, even if it happens, will be muzzled, and we will have a process that will likely come up uh, uh, to end up in chaos and dissatisfaction among the citizenry. We can fall back to a recent example in Nigeria, where we learned that no more than if you would get me, I'm not wrong. If I would get it right, I don't think more than 25% of the electorate participated in the Nigerian election. I think out of 8 million, out of 80 million or so, I think that's probably 10% participated, and that evoked, massive street demonstrations and dissatisfaction throughout the country. You have a situation where democracy is supposed to bring out the rule of the majority, but democracy usually don't bring out the rule of the majority. It brings out the rule of the majority who participates. So if you have 10% of the electorate participating, then the majority of that 10% will make the decision, and that usually borders down to which side is more enthusiastic about participating. In this case, I think it borders more towards the benefit of the incumbent if these scenarios occur and remain.
Yes, yes.
And that is
Go ahead.
okay, and that's interesting, John.
Yeah.
Besides the issue of security, it has to do with the role the opposition political parties can play to ensure a transparent, fair, democratic, and open elections. The main opposition Unity Party right now has endorsed the former Vice President Joseph Boakai as the presidential candidate. Boakai, you remember he lost to Weah in 2017. Now he's mobilizing an opposition coalition to us during this election. As you and I know, this coalition that Borkai tried to put together with the help of others has not really been holding together. So what is your take on the role of the opposition to ensure that we have an election that is open and people can participate freely and feel safe? What do you think would be the role of this opposition political parties in the country?
Well, the political parties can first of all take the first step by putting pressure on the government, using the masses of their supporters to put in place the right tenets and the right structures that will allow a free democracy to occur. It's useless to complain after the fact when you have the opportunity to correct the wrongs in advance.
Mhm.
If they recognize the same things that we're discussing now, the lack of security, the lack of organization, and even a couple of months ago, the government itself came and complained about lack of financial resources to even handle the entire budget of the electoral process, which includes security, the provision of logistics for polling stations, and a whole host of other things. If these things are not in place, and the opposition does not recognize the fact that the structures and tenets are not, in place, uh, the obvious outcomes will occur, which will be a muzzle electoral process that will happen in October. They need to put pressure on the government now before election happens. And moreover, they within their own ranks needs to put their houses in order to make sure that happens. You see, when the center does not hold, things will fall apart. Okay, so it seems that the opposition, I'm segueing into another issue that relates to the opposition. As we saw 2 years ago, the opposition was firmly united in this organization called the CPP, and they won
Yeah, the
sweeping elections.
collaborative political parties, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, they swept a lot of elections in major counties like Montserrat or Grand Bassa by as much as 60% of the vote. that represented a chance for a first round victory.
Mhm.
And it also mirrored the results of the past election, where we have won 38% in the first round, and all the combined votes of the rest of the other parties came up with 62%. So that divide remains in Liberia today. You have a set 30 some more percent that support the CDC, and you have over 60% that do not support the CDC. But that math, on a general sense, may look easy, but if you dig deep into the weeds, you can clearly see that that 62% that oppose WIA is divided by 21 political parties, like you just alluded to. And major among those political parties, you have, the boycott and the Cummings wing, the UP and ANC. But those wings are bitterly divided. And
The Liberty Party too is part of that. The Liberty Party.
yeah,
All my
Liberty
friends.
Party is another strong wing. They are not putting forth, as we've seen yet. They haven't put through a standard bearer, but they are also within that wing. That's another strong political party, but they are all splintered within their own environment, in their own political camp. So they have to hold firm together. They have to hold the government feet to the fire to make sure that these structures are put in place. The basic foundations for free and fair elections in October is firmly in place. We're sitting at the month of April, the fourth month. 6 months from now, there will be elections. That's very close. And if things are not in place, then we're setting up ourselves for disaster in October.
Indeed, and
Yeah.
we just don't want to see that disaster happening. And if you're just joining us, this is the Gracious Hope Live podcast, and we have our special guest here, Mr. John F. Lloyd, and he is the former president of the Liberian community in the Washington, D.C. metro area. He also served with the city mayor in D.C. as the commissioner of African immigrants. He was also a chairman of the national leadership of EULA. And we are talking about the present situation in our country and looking to the future for a better Liberia. And we are all anticipating for this election that is coming up to happen so that we can see who is who or who's going to become the new leader or leaders, not just on the presidential level, but in the legislative arena as well. And so share our link if you're just joining us, and we'll be right back. And when we come back, we'll look at the apathy of the people, the spirit of apathy. In other words, politicians, they promise they will do better. They have this elaborate platform, and they tend to convince or persuade the electorate. But in the end, we have seen it over and over. It's the same old story. So then how do we reverse that spirit of apathy? And our guest and Reverend Dedet and I will be right back. Please don't go away. We'll be right back. All right, so we are right back here. Okay, and you can opine, okay, comment, express what is on your mind. This is a very civil discourse, and we are creating awareness here as believers in Christ. And as we observe this weekend, this holy weekend, it's time to express what is on your mind for the betterment of our country. And our guest is also providing some analysis and his perspective on where we should be and where we are not and where we need to be. And we all look forward to that better Liberia for every one of us. But we can't do so without the blessing or the anointing of God through answering our prayers. We all pray for our country and we want the best for our country. And on this day, we could use this opportunity to pray for our leaders and all those that are in the echelon of power, so that they can be more sensitive to the needs of the people. Now, Reverend Lord, when there is insecurity and when there is economic upheaval, as well as past history of violence and the lack of civil discourse, the voters and Liberians as a whole, they feel that sense of apathy. They want to give up. They'll say voting, same old thing. I've been hearing that over and over. We still have the same condition, no foreign investment, and people are not working, and crime rate, and a lot of things they will elaborate on. Now, how do we encourage those who are feeling that spirit of apathy so that they can have that hope for a better Liberia?
Well, people who feel hopeless in an environment where they have become immune to the pain of neglect are usually very difficult to convince. I think men like you, Reverend Dede, Dr. Red, who you're also a minister, I think the pulpit plays a very important role in motivating and encouraging people to build that sense of enthusiasm in the midst of despair, to do what they have to do. The politicians right now don't occupy a very prominent role, because I think on the opposition end they have done a lot to discourage their supporters because of the interceding battles that they've been having. The infightings have discouraged a lot of voters from our political observation. But the pulpit will play a great role. People can continue, as opinion leaders can continue to encourage our people that regardless of the prevailing conditions, they should not despair. And when you hear people say things like, you killed my mom, you killed my pa, I will still vote for you. You know book, you don't know book, we'll vote for him. These are words that we may condemn on the part of our people and cast them aside as people who are foolish. But I think we need to, lift up the curtains and look behind the scenes and find out the underlying reason to this level of expression of despair in those kinds of words. What led them to the point where they are so immune, to the wrongs that have been meted to them that they just don't care. In other words, I'm doomed. Whether I go left or right, I'm still doomed. I've had the educated people and they failed me. I had the uneducated people, they failed me. So what difference does it make at this point? That's the reality of the mentality of the voters that we're dealing with right now. And it is not that we don't have decent, serious-minded Liberians who are capable of becoming leaders with vision. But for some reason, we haven't had the opportunity yet, by God's grace, to have such leaders assume the leadership of our country at the appropriate time. But we have to go in our communities, whether you are politicians or not, whether we engage each other on a one-on-one basis. In every opportunity that we find, let's encourage our people to not despair, to show up to the polls, to perform their civic duties as business people, as market women, as students. Go to school as market women. Go ahead and carry out your normal activities. Choose among the available that have been, with the options that have been given to you on the ballot, and take the person that will seek your interest, and not a person whose interest you seek to foster. You are not voting for people because they represent someone that you admire or that it's their time. Vote for a leader because it's your time. It matters not who that leader is. If that leader represents the values and the hopes that are within your hearts, minds, and soul, and the future for your children and the generations to come, then choose that leadership. And that's the level of voters' education that we need to give our people to make a transformation in our nation.
Yes, that's true, Reverend Dede.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. I mean, that's just what it is. But for the church to play its rightful role in politics or democracy or even the economy, there has to be people who see their role as the church as sacrosanct and important in society. Now, church leaders have politicians visiting them in the churches. But the question is, are they preaching the messages that the church leaders, that the political leaders should hear and make a roundabout turn for the right direction? Even some of us, I agree, John, that the church has a role to play, the clergy has a role to play. But this is also true that even the church has its own part to play in making the society go in the wrong direction. because we don't call the political leaders to order by the word of God, like the prophets of old would do, Samuel, Nathan, the rest of that, or depending on God's protection to do what they had to do. The question is, are our church leaders doing that? Some of them are doing that, but the percentage, the ratio that we have to deal with, that's one aspect, John. But let me introduce another aspect. The media also has a role to play to ensure that we have free and fair elections in Liberia. But so as we discussed, the church, is the media prepared to play that role, Alex and John, in the 2023 October 10 elections? Because we see the media, where the media is right now. We can critique in different ways. John is a media man, Alex is a media man, I'm a media man. So in other ways, Alex and I are in the clergy side, and then we're on the media side. So we are between the sisters, John. In a way, we take it, we are between the sisters. But as we look at the church, John, what do you think the media is doing, the role of the media is happening right now to foster free and fair elections in Liberia or not?
Well, the role of the media is very crucial. I did mention the pulpit, but the media is called the fourth estate for a reason. We had the first, second, and third estate in government, which being the executive, judicial, and the legislative branches of the government. But then we have the fourth estate, because it's the fourth most influential entity and aspect of our society, the media. The media is responsible for educating our people. They influence the minds of our people on a daily basis, whether, through print or through broadcast, radio, television. These are the voices that people hear on a daily basis, even more than their politicians, and sometimes even more than their clergy. And first of all, our media, I know you didn't want to be critical, but those who stand in the way of the media have to be informed. They have a responsibility to be informed, to inform themselves of the issues, and to allow themselves in that position to impart. You cannot educate when you're not educated yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So our media today needs to they need to open their mind more to information and research, to impart the information, and they have to exercise a higher degree of integrity in the practice of their profession. No one says they have to be perfect, but they have to recognize the responsibility as member of the fourth estate, not to be swayed by the powers that be, but to see, that sacred role that they play in society to transform the minds of people, especially at a crucial time of election. I remember days in the past where we had fearless people in the media who didn't care about going to jail. Alex Red is one year who, Dr. Red, I remember the days, when you fled and came here from prosecution, during Charles Taylor's days. Swadede, you were the president of the Press Union of Liberia. You faced stiff challenges from the highest levels of government, even from the executive mansion itself. I stand here, I stood before, head of state President Doe and had to flee. And we stood up during those days when we were very young and had no fear. I'm not saying that there aren't men and women in the media now. They are very, you got Rodney here, Kenneth Best, and, about the late, our friend, Philip Wisse. These guys have been torchbearers in the media. They, we must commend them for what they're doing. And they've tried their best to nurture others behind them. But we just have to encourage our brothers and sisters in the media to see their role and their responsibility as being key, and not to offshoot those responsibilities to Facebook. If you notice, there's a burgeoning environment of Facebook media, self-made media personalities nowadays who are completely oblivious of what journalism is, and they have become the standard bearers and the purveyors of information of our people, and they are leading the blind into a darker environment in Liberia. I mean, there cannot be a worse time for this kind of barrage of misinformation to go out there. We need to find a way to bring our people back to the mainstream media for a source of information. But if the mainstream media does not render its presence the way it should be, then the quasi-journalists like I said, on social media may take the course and lead our people in a direction that will become even more devastating for our country.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are saying these days regarding the media, passing on stories that are not fact checked or that are not true, based on hearsay, nothing very substantive at all in their storylines. And that, of course, we have organizations from the PUL to ALJA, um, trying to find a head around it to see what can be done, particularly this for this during this electoral process. Now, there's always infighting when it comes to politics. We have seen government or politicians fighting among themselves. For example, the coalition of political parties, they had infighting, accusing one another regarding falsified documents. That case were thrown out, and we just see the fights and the division. And that is not just in the political arena, but also within the ecclesiastical arena, the church as a whole. I recall during an interview with Bishop Abiola Babua of the Philadelphia Church, Central Church in Liberia, he said even in the church, I mean, they have divisive attitude as well. That is the Liberian church, and they are not speaking with one voice. We have the Liberian Council of Churches. We have some um, other factions as a whole, and even in the Providence Baptist Church, they have other sector of people who have variety of other groups. So we see the division everywhere, and we have noticed over the years that our country is lack of love. That is lack of love for one another. It's a big factor. Lack of trust, lack of integrity, and so this whole atmosphere regarding not trusting each other or one another is a big factor. So then, if we look at our country and we're talking about progress, we're talking about moving the country forward, how do we make sense of all of these things to come to a reality that we need to get along?
We need to get along, and we need to realize that we need to get along, and we will realize that we need to get along when we focus our eyes on the prize, on the goal. There have been, infighting even among religious leaders, as you notice, within the Baptist church, within the Methodist church, fierce fighting for position and all these things. But in these fightings, they forget to recognize that the purpose for which they come together is to promote the service of God. And they have to ask themselves, are these battles worth fighting? Are they counterproductive to the goal that we seek in leading our institutions? Going to the political scene, you mentioned the breakup and the underlying reason for the breakup of the CPP. They came together because they felt the overwhelming and overarching need to defeat the incumbent, leader. But have they shown that they are better than the person that they choose to dethrone? If they cannot demonstrate to the Liberian people that they are better than the present leader, then the Liberian people will feel that it's useless trying to remove the incumbent if the opposition cannot prove within themselves that they are better human beings. They garner 62% of the vote as an opposition entity. And when it came now to deciding on who would be the head, things fell apart because everybody felt that they were entitled to be the head, even though they had an agreement that said that they should go through a competition to decide on who the leader would be. But no one wanted to be the loser in that fashion, so they decided at some point to scatter. These decisions were not decisions, sometimes we point finger at Boykai or Cummings, but we have to realize that it's not Mr. Boykai or Mr. Cummings alone that have been responsible for these bad decisions. They are the advisors that stand behind them. These advisors who feel that they have personal gain, invested in these candidates. In other words, if Boykai joins with Cummings, or Cummings joins with Boykai, where would be my place? I have to give that place to a person on the other side, in terms of position. So the advice that they gave to their candidates are bad advices because it suits their personal taste. One statistic I would give, coming from the previous elections, we had an election, and you talk about apathy, Dr. Red.
Mm-hmm.
We had an election in last election 2017, where 1.6 million voters participated in the first round. That was somewhere around 75% of the electorate participated in the first round, 1.6 million. Within that first round, as I indicated earlier, the CDC got 38%, and the rest of the parties got 62%. That took Mr. Boycott and Mr. Weah to the second round.
Yes.
When they got to the second round, because of the bitter infighting from the first round, 400,000 voters that participated in the first round did not participate in the second round.
Wow.
That is a manifestation. It was a clear demonstration of voters' apathy. In other words, they saw no reason to vote in the second round because they didn't care what the outcome would be. So this presumption that if one candidate can just arrive at the second round, then everyone would just rally around in a glorious union and defeat Weah, it's not much of a reality. 400,000 Liberians who participated in the first round in 2017 did not participate in the second round. Now look at what's happening right now in the political scene. You have supporters from Cummings and Boycott side on Facebook, governed by these quasi-media personalities, saying the worst political things that you can say against each other. There's bad blood building on a daily basis on each side. And by the time they get to the second round, apathy will take its place. Many of those voters for Cummings will not show up to vote for Mr. Boycott with all the bitterness that exists right now. Many of Boycott's supporters, if Cummings happens to come to the second round for any reason, will not support him because of that embedded bitterness within their side. And who benefits? The incumbent. So that assumption that they have that, well, we just go to the second round and we're going to achieve, a victory, is not necessarily a reality. The reality of unity has to exist now. They have to promote that environment of cordiality and oneness and focus on the goal. Is it the goal to see a better Liberia? Is Mr. Weah standing in the way of a better Liberia? Is he worse than Mr. Boycott? Is he worse than Mr. Cummings? Whatever their conclusions are, they need to make that now. If they are seeking the greater good, then someone somewhere needs to think twice and begin to look at the ultimate prize and make the ultimate sacrifice, not just for themselves, but for the future of the country that they claim that they love so much. And if voters do not see that desire and that love and that devotion and commitment on the part of those who say that they are running for president, then they'll feel no reason to show up at the poll in large numbers. And it boils down to the statement you made and the suggestion you made earlier about apathy, the lack of interest and enthusiasm. And that will be the deciding factor in this election come October 2023.
Yeah, Reverend Dede.
Fair enough. And we began, and thanks, John, for bringing it together. We began by discussing Good Friday and the Holy Week, and it is about fair that we go back in that conclusion and see how we tie everything together with the love of God. If you look in John, you see that Jesus washed his disciples' feet. Why? And John alluded to that. It has to be service and humility. And Jesus says to his disciples, do this to show what I've done for you, and as a move to my first commandment of love. So in a case of apathy, in a case of complacency, because I see John and Alex, besides apathy, complacency is also playing a devastating role in our body politic. Those who are in leadership, who saw what happened in the past, the wrong governance, but they are now in leadership, but they are complacent with what they have. And so they are comfortable and not dealing with issues as they did in the past, criticizing the past government. So apathy and complacency are issues that are plaguing us. But coming back to the issue of Christ Jesus washing his disciples' feet and kissing their feet, as a matter of fact, is to bring us back to our first love. Because in the face of that, John, there will be no way we will hate each other. You and I grew up in Liberia. We saw the love amongst us. You talk about Judas, flocking Judas. We did it together, chasing Judas and the rest of that. When the war started, it was so uncommon to see bodies in the streets because we're not used to that. But what happened later on? We got comfortable. We got used to seeing bodies in the street, in the streets of Monrovia. And your point is, it's constructive. The issue of service comes with humility. Humility is to realize that your pivotal role is to serve the people and not to just rule them. There's service and rulership. I think our leaders, Alex and John, they are more focused on rulership rather than service to the people of Liberia. Now, if the mind of rulership is in the mental status, we have a big issues on our hands. That's why we have all these political issues going on right now. But I think it's time, whether politically or socially or what have you, economically, to come back to that realization that we are one people. One person is hurt, we all are hurt. The focus should be on service to humanity, service to the Liberian people, love of the Liberian people. Then we'll be able to fulfill the first commandment, that greatest commandment, to love one another. And until that comes together, as Liberians, we're going to miss the boat. And that's how important Good Friday is, especially Sunday tomorrow when Jesus resurrects from the grave, giving us victory all the things we're talking about, because in him we consist. Until we see that, we're going to be at each other's throat.
Yes, yes, and we are hoping to see the best coming out of our country, and we can do so if we all continue to subject ourselves to a much higher sovereign power, and this is God. Remember in our preamble, when we are in crisis, we must look up to God. That God that is mentioned in the preamble of our Constitution is a God who we depend on for survival. Okay, and so until we can look up to the God who manifested himself in Christ Jesus, all of the principles and values of life will be thrown out of the window. And we can see that our country is lack of love right now. That unity is going on, and that lack of integrity when it comes to occupying and also performing the role that is given to each of our friends or brothers and sisters that are in the echelon of power, both politically and in the church as a whole. Mr. Lord, any final word before we leave here?
Well, my final word is again reflecting on the essence of Easter. Easter, in as much as we celebrate Jesus, passing on the cross and his resurrection, we can look at that in another way. Jesus' death was a symbol of a revolution of things. He was destroyed on Friday, and on Sunday he rose again to greater eternity, to a larger and eternal status. And because of that transformation and that experience of Jesus Christ, 2,000 years afterwards, he's the greatest symbol that ever existed on earth. No good things can come out of thin air.
Yeah.
The best that we enjoy comes out of sacrifice. Yeah. If Jesus did not go through that state of destruction on Friday, there wouldn't have been a new beginning on Sunday. Liberia has gone through a destructive fast. We're going through our destruction. We had our Good Fridays. We still may be going through the Easter Saturday, but there will be a resurrection day on Sunday for Liberia at some point in time. It's a determination of each and every one of us that will get us there. It may not come at a time that we ordain, but I think persistence will beat resistance, and eventually we will see that day. They say truth crushed to the earth shall rise again. And James Russell Lowell also said it so eloquently. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown standeth God in the shadow, keeping watchable of his own. I think we are his own, Liberians, we have prayed and we have been devoted to him. The majority of Liberians are not evil. They are not responsible for the wrongs of that country. I think majority of Liberians have only just been victims of the wrong that have been done in that country. And at some point in time, things will turn around and we will move forward. But I think that determination just has to continue. One step at a time, we will get to where we ought to be. And it's been a pleasure, gentlemen, joining you guys today. And as always, it's a pleasure joining intellectuals and discussing the future of our country and the issues that exist. And I'm open anytime to join you guys in these chats, on Saturdays to discuss the future of our country. And keep up the good work, Dr. Red and Reverend Dede, uh, and keep up the struggle of Liberia. One step at a time, we'll get to where it belongs.
It is always our pleasure, Mr. John F. Lloyd, to welcome you to this platform to discuss these myriad of issues that are plaguing our country. And it's our
Yeah,
prayer and hope that we all join hands to see that unity in the end after reconciliation, to have a goal and to see our country, rising in the sense that where we have a lot of foreign investments, we have the economy working well, so that people can get back to jobs, so they can work and feed their family. So that family structure, which is the building block of the country, will rise up. Because if you have good family life, then it eventually leads to a much brighter society. And we are hoping to work in those areas, and we are praying hard for that. Thank you once again for coming.
thank you
Thank
also.
you, John. We appreciate you.
All right. And we are so glad that you are with us. And that was the voice of our special guest, Mr. John Lord. And he is a former president of the Liberian community in the Washington, D.C. metro area. He also served as chairman for the National Leadership Council of EULA, as well as the commissioner to the mayor's office in D.C., Washington, D.C., for African Affairs. And we are so joyful in our spirit to have him here as our special guest. And
Yeah.
hopefully, um, you will share this link with your friends, your family, and your relatives so that they can be a part of this live broadcast. Reverend Dede, this is how we end the Saturday.
I told you,
Anything
John
else?
would not disappoint. So
Yes.
we didn't deal with personalism or deal with issues. So I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. And thank you, Ellis. God bless you as well.
Thank you.